What up, dog? Welcome to Nmap Advanced Port Scan. This is Task 1, Introduction. This is the third room in the Nmap series. In the first two rooms, we learn about the live host discovery and basic port scan. In the room of basic port scan, we cover the TCP three-way handshakes and how Nmap uses the response from the target port to determine if the port is open. In this room, we'll explore more advanced types of scans and scan options. Okay, let's move on to task 2. We're looking for 3 different scan here. So let's start with the null scan. This uses the option SN. It sends a TCP packet with no flags. This will not trigger any response when it reaches the open port. If the port is closed, we will expect the target to respond with the RST flag. And if there's no reply, there might be the port is either open or filtered. Here you can see you can use the sudo nmap-sn followed by machine IP for your command. Next up, we had the fin scan. This uses the SF option. It sends the finished packet to the target, and if there's no reply, then a TCP port is open, and Nmap cannot be sure if the port is open or filtered, so if the port is closed, we will expect the target to respond with the reset flag. Please note that some firewall will drop the packet without sending the reset flag. And here you can see the command the sudo nmap-sf will follow the machine IP. Next one, we have the Xmas scan. This uses the SX option. You got the name after Christmas tree lights. Xmas scan sets fins and push and urgent flag simultaneously. Like null and fin scans, if you receive a reset packet, this means the port is closed. Otherwise, it will be reported as open or filtered. Here you can see the command sudo nmap-sx followed by the machine IP. Okay, now let's answer the question below. In a null scan, how many flags are set to 1? Well, null scan sends a TCP packet with no flag, so we will say 0. Next one, in a fin scan, how many flags are set to 1? Well, fin scan only sends a fin flag, so the answer will be 1. In a Xmas scan, how many flags are set to 1? Well, it sends a fin, push, and urgent flags simultaneously, so the answer will be 3. Don't forget, we need to start the virtual machine and load the attack box. Once both are ready, open a terminal on the attack box and use the nmap to launch a fin scan against the target VM. How many ports appear to be open and filtered? Okay, once it's open, you can type in the command sudo nmap-sf followed by the machine IP. And if you if you just count it slowly, there are 9 open and filter ports. Alright, next one. Repeat your scan launching a null scan against a target VM. How many ports appear to be open and filter? Okay, let's same command, but this time we want to use the option -sn. So we would do sudo nmap-sn followed by the machine IP. And you'll see the results are actually the same. So there are also 9 open and filtered ports. Alright, let's exit the split window and we move on to task 3, the TCP Maimon scan. So this scan uses the option -sm. It is a technique that is exactly the same as null, fin, and Xmas scan, except the probe is now fin/ACK. So according to RFC 793, a reset packet should be generated in response to such a probe, whether the port is open or closed. The turning point is that many BSD-derived systems simply drop the packet if the port is open. But that is the old news. Many new systems will just respond with the RST packet, making the port appear to be closed. All right, let's answer the questions below. In the MIMO scan, how many flags are set? Well, there's only fin and ACK flag, so there are 2. Move on to next task. Task 4, TCP ACK window and custom scan. Before we move on, just know that there is a new virtual machine here, so we want to terminate our old one. So TCP ACK scan, this uses the option -SA. It sends a TCP packet with the ACK flag because there is no send packet for the initialization, thus the target will respond with the RST packet. This scan is useful if there is a firewall in front of the target. Based on the ACK packet results in the response, you will see that the port weren't blocked by the firewall, and this is more suitable for discover firewall rule set and configurations. And here you can see the command as sudo nmap-sa followed by the machine IP address. Alright, moving on, we got window scan. A window scan is a TCP-based port scan technique that sends a TCP ACK packet to the target and then analyzes the field in the response called the TCP window size to infer if the port is open or closed. This uses the option -SW. So when you send a TCP ACK packet to a port without any handshake, the behavior depends on the port state. So if it's closed, the target sends back a TCP reset packet. If it's filtered, the packet is dropped. This means no reply. And if it's open, or not, normally we can't tell just by the ACK alone. So that's when the window scan tries to go further. So if a port state is open and receive a reset packet, a TCP window size is a non-zero value. If the port state is closed and receive the RST packet, the TCP window size is 0. So even though both open and closed port sends the reset packet, but the window field in the TCP header can differ. And that is how Nmap uses to guess whether the port is open or closed. So on certain OS, mainly on the older or less secure TCP stacks, the window size actually differ for open and closed ports. While this can be used to sneak past stateless firewalls that only block certain IP flags, TCP flags. This is very unreliable in a modern network. Most modern TCP/IP stacks randomize or zero out the window size for the reset packet response, making it inconsistent. Alright, next up we have the custom scan. Let's not limit yourself with the existing option. We can choose to send different TCP flags simultaneously with the --scan flags followed by the flag option. However, this requires you to know about your target in order to build a custom scan. Alright, let's answer the questions below. In a TCP window scan, how many flags are set? Well, in a window scan, it only sends an ACK flag, so the answer will be 1. And you decide to experiment with a custom TCP scan that has a reset flag. What would you add after --scan flags? A reset flag is stand for RST, so that's what we put. Alright, next one. The VM received an update to its firewall rule set. A new port is now allowed by a firewall. After you make sure that you have to terminate the VM for task 2, start a VM for this task, launch the attack box if you haven't done that already. Once both are ready, open the terminal on the attack box and use Nmap to launch an ACK scan against the target VM. How many ports appear unfiltered? Alright, first let us open the split view again. Alright, let me scroll up to find the IP address. Okay, and alright, so open your terminal and you can start typing sudo nmap-sa followed by your IP address. Alright, after you hit enter, let's just wait for a little bit before the results showed up. And alright, seems like we have 4 unfiltered ports. What is the new port number that appeared? To determine the new port, you need to compare the scan results of task 2 to the ones of this task. Okay, well, let's scroll up to see from the last result. So here, after if you compare it, you see that the new port to be 443. Okay, let's move on. Is there any service behind the newly discovered port number? Yes or no? Well, if you want to check all of these, and you can see that HTTP, HTTPS. So to check those, we can first open up a browser, and we'll put those address down. All right, once the browser is open, we want to go find our target IP address again, and we're gonna go try all those different ports. So first we want to try is the 443. So it's gonna be your machine IP followed by a column and the port number. Here we're gonna try 443. So you can see once this loaded, it says it's unable to connect. But is it the same for every other port? So we're gonna move on to try the port 22 and see what's the difference. And like when I went to put down 22, 25, and you can see the results became restricted instead of unable to connect. This is a very good indication that showing that port 443 actually doesn't really have anything behind it. All right, hence that even port 80 there's a service behind it. So this can conclude that behind this port there is no service. So we will answer N for no. All right, next up we're gonna look into spoofing and decoys. So Nmap can spoof the source IP address using the -s followed by the spoof IP address. The target will reply to the spoof IP and not the attacker. So in order for this scan to be useful, the attacker must be able to capture the response traffic. This usually means the attacker is either on the same subnet or is sniffing the traffic, like man in the middle or a passive tap. And without a reply to capture, the scan is unreliable. In general, you will use the nmap-e. This is the network interface -pn-s for the spoof IP followed by your target IP. So -e specifies the network interface you want to use, and -pn it disables the pin connect detection because the reply is going to the spoof IP, not you. So if the attacker and the target are on the same network, then you unlock the MAC address spoofing feature. So this spoofs the source MAC address. It is useful to evade simple MAC-based access control or tracking. So here we can use the nmap with the --spoof -mac followed by the spoof MAC address and the target IP. And we want to talk about decoy scan. A decoy scan sends probe from multiple fake IPs, either they're real or random, to hide the attacker's real IP address. This confuses the intrusion detection system and make the attribution difficult. An attacker's IP can be mixed using ME, ME, and R&D can be used to auto-generate random decoy IPs. So here we can see an example would be a nmap-d followed by two set IP address as decoy, and then me for RIP, then follow up with the target IP address. And if you can also look like a from 10-10-0-1, 10-10.0-2 with the R&D stand for random and me followed by the um, target address. All right. Let's answer the questions below. So what do you want? What do you need to add to the command sudo nmap with the IP address to make the scan appear as if it's coming from the source IP address 10.10.10.11 instead of your own IP address? So because we want a spoof IP, so we want to use the -s function followed by the spoof IP, which is the 10.10.10.11. Okay, next one. What do you need to add the command sudo nmap IP to make the scan appear if it's coming from the source IP address of 10.10.20.21 and 10.10.20.28 in addition to your IP address. So when you have multiple IP address, this is known as decoy. So we want to use the -d followed by the 10.10.20.21 and 10.10.20.28 followed by me. All right, let's move on to task 6, fragmented packets. All right, here we will start with the firewall. This is a software or hardware that filters network traffic based on predefined rules. The rules can be a default deny, which means it blocks all traffic with exceptions, or it can be a default allow, which allows all traffic with exceptions. This inspects the IP header, the transport layer header. In advanced firewalls like web application firewall or the next generation firewalls, it may also inspect the payloads for deeper filtering. And next one, we have the IDS, the intrusion detection system. This monitors the network traffic to detect malicious pattern or null signatures. It analyzes the IP and transport headers and payloads, sometimes for known attack patterns. It raises alert rather than blocking. This is passive by default. Common types are IDS you're looking for a signature based, like a antivirus, or it can be a anomaly based, which is a behavior deviation. So in order to avoid detection, the technique we'll use is called a fragmentation. This is done by breaking malicious packet data into a smaller chunks that may evade the IDS detection. Since the signature won't match if it's in chunks, it also confuses simple firewalls. This can reduce the chance that the whole packet contents are analyzed. To do fragmentation of the Nmap, we will use the -f function option. So if you use just -f, this fragment packets into a less than 8-byte chunks. If you use -ff or -f-f, this fragment into a less than 16-byte chunks. If you want to customize the fragment size, you can use the --mtu followed by the number. Just know that the number must be the multiple of 8. So how does it work? A TCP header, typically in 24 bytes, is divided across the IP fragments. Each fragment will include a 20 bytes of TCP, the IP header. The remaining is the TCP header or data. An example we use here is a sudo nmap-ss-p80-f followed by the target IP. So from before, we will know this is a stealth scan with the IP fragmentation. The TCP header, 24 bytes, will be split into 3 fragments, which is going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8 bytes. On an IP header field for the fragmentation, for the identification, the ID is shared by all fragments of the same packet. The fragment, you have fragment offset. This tells the receiving host how to reassemble the packet. And fragmentation happens at the IP layer, not the TCP layer. To add some extra obfuscation, you can do padding packets. So by using --data-length followed by the number, this appends a custom junk data to the packet. This is used to confuse the IDS pattern matching. It makes the packet appear more normal in size, and it hides the real payload. An example you can see is a nmap-ss-p80-data-link. Here we say the number is 50 followed by the IP address. This adds 50 bytes of data to each probe. So let's answer the question below. So if the TCP segment have a size of 64 and a -ff option is being used, how many IP fragment will you get? So -ff, this fragment into less than 16 byte chunks. So 64 divided by 16, you get a total of 4 fragments. All right, move on to task 7, idle and zombie scan. An idle scan is a stealthy port scan that makes a scan look like it's coming from another machine. So instead of scanning the target directly, use a third party like an idle host as the middleman. You will spoof your scan packet to look like they come from this host. Watch how the zombie's IP ID counter changes to figure out whether the port is open. So first you will probe the zombie to get the current IP ID value, and then you will send a SYM pack to the target to spoof the IP, like spoofing the zombie's IP. So this will result in the target replies to the zombie and not you. Then you will probe the zombie again. So if the IP ID went up by 2, then the target port is open. If it only went up by 1, then the port is either closed or it is filtered. This trick works because the zombie increment their IP ID every time they send a response. To use this, we will use nmap-si followed by the zombie IP and then the target IP. A good zombie should be a device that are quiet, it means low or no traffic, a device with predictable IP ID behavior, such as printer, old network appliances, and idle network window boxes. You can test them with the command nmap-v-pn-p80-scan flag with the SYN followed by the zombie IP. So if the IP ID increment by 1 each time, then this is a good candidate. Some of the thing you might watch out for is if there's no result or all the ports are filtered. This can be caused by the zombie is too busy or has random IP IDs. You should just pick another one, a little quieter zombie. If all ports shows closed, you may not spoof correctly. Check the network access and spoofing and see if the spoofing works. And if the results are inconsistent, then this could be a unstable zombie behavior. Retest the zombie and see with multiple probes. So why does it matter though? Is a target have no idea you're scanning when you're doing the idle scan. The scan appears to come from someone else. This can bypass firewall and logging system that locks the source IP. This is a perfect for no noise scan, a low noise scan, and stay hidden in a monitor network, framing another host, which is good for blue and red mind games. Alright, let's move on to the questions below. You discover a rarely used network printer with the IP address 10.10.5.5, and you decide to use it as a zombie in your idle scan. What arguments should you use to add to your nmap command? Well, from the list before, we want to use the -si followed by the IP address, the 10.10.5.5. Alright, let's move on to task 8, getting more details. So we want to understand why Nmap reports what it reports. So normally Nmap tells you what ports are open or closed and whether the host is up or down, but not always why. By using the dash reasons, Nmap will show what triggers each conclusion. So here we can see the two different results. The one without a reason, the other one with the reason. You can tell is way more in detail, and you can see in one of the column with the reason column, is stated with the synth add packet, and you will see the synth add TTL64. This means that the target replied with the syntax packet, and you can see that it was not shown before, but now with the reason it was shown. And another feature you have is a verbosity. So by using a dash v and dash v and double v, you can see what's happening behind the scenes. This is especially valuable when you want to verify a scan's accuracy, when you need to document findings clearly for the client or reports, and when you're working in noisy or unfiltered or filtered environments. Alright, let's move on to the questions. Launch the attack box if you haven't done already. After you make sure that you have terminated the VM for task 4, start the VM for this task, wait for it to load completely, and then open a terminal on the attack box and use nmap with nmap-ss-f reason machine IP to scan the VM. What is the reason provided for the stated port to be open? Okay, let's go up to terminate the machine and start our new one. While we're waiting, let's get in more detail of like why does this matter. With all these details, you can validate each result with no blind trust. It helps to explain results in client-facing reports. You can expose weird behavior. If a target responds with a reset and act packet instead of a send and act packet, you know the service might be misconfigured or filtered. This is useful for bypassing defenses, like understanding how a firewall response will help you fine-tune your evasion. Alright, now once the machine is loaded up, we can open our terminal again. Just close the window, open terminal, and we will type in sudo nmap -ss-f for fast scan and dash reason and follow with the machine IP, and we will hit the scan and see what the results will be. Alright, once we get a result, we see that port 111 will be open. And with the reason column, you will see that it will be due to send-act. So we will type that in for our answer. All right, and let's close the exit the split window and move on to task 9 to the summary. Well, this will be the last part, and here you'll see all the scan and option that we use in this room as a cheat sheet. And congratulations, you just finished the Nmap Advanced Port Scan.